Well, awesome. Thank you so much for coming and giving your time to chat with me. And I'm just going to do a really basic introduction. This is Travis Stote from Yoga Democracy, and he is just the founder of Yoga Democracy. And just right off the bat, Travis, can you give me a little background on your company, maybe how it started, when it started, um, and your involvement?
So my partner and I started the company 7 years ago. We were really into yoga, and it was kind of right about when yoga pants were really becoming a thing. Lululemon was on the map, and we noticed in the market there was really only one kind of yoga pant out there or activewear out there, and it was all solid, very minimal, nothing that really was loud or expressive. And also, there wasn't too many brands out there with a strong social or environmental initiative. So we wanted to change that. So we started Yoga Democracy, and our goal with the brand was to make sure that it was a win-win for everything involved. So not just the people buying the product or the people selling the product, but also the people making the product and the environment and the materials used to make the product. So throughout the lifespan of growing our company, we always, whenever we're making a decision, the first thing we ask is how does this impact everything involved? And if it's, as long as it's a win-win, then it's always a yes. So we started Yoga Democracy 7 years ago. We are vertically integrated, so we manufacture everything under our own roof. All of our fabrics are made from post-consumer recycled materials, so either water bottles or fishing nets. And we are the only zero waste manufacturer in the United States, meaning that all of our excess fabric goes one of two places. It either gets broken down to its fibers and respun into fabric to be reused, or it gets repurposed and either shoved into dog beds and donated to local shelters, or made into headbands, and so on and so forth. So all of everything in our office is repurposed, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we have two brick and mortar stores. We have a store in New York City and a store here in Scottsdale. And right now, kind of our goal is we're reverse engineering modern day manufacturing. So we're trying to get even more sustainable by reducing the carbon footprint and the waste associated with shipping. And the way we're doing that is we're creating these what we call micro manufacturing facilities. So whenever you walk into our store, in the back half, it's glassed in, and there is a room with 3 to 5 sewing machines and 3 to 6 women cutting fabrics, sewing it. So you can walk in and you can watch the product gets made. And that micro manufacturing facility not only supplies that store with product, but it also supplies the 200 to 500 mile radius of e-commerce sales. Because we're primarily e-commerce. I would say we're 60% e-commerce, 30% brick and mortar, and 10% wholesale. So the goal is every time we open up a new store, we can cover a radius of fulfillment for that location. And what that really does is, instead of having one large manufacturing facility where we're shipping out tons of small orders, we can ship bulk pieces. It takes the same amount of energy and money and time and waste to ship a pallet full of fabric or materials to a store as it does to ship one plastic bag or one envelope. Yeah. So the theory behind this is we can ship a giant pallet to our store, they can make it, and then they can distribute it locally for a lot less carbon footprint. Yeah. So that's kind of the theory behind that.
So cool. When you first told me that, it just was so inspiring, and just hearing you talk about the details that's you guys have figured that out, which is really special.
It's pretty cool. And there's a lot of other reasons behind it. I mean, one of the big ones is we really wanted to bring attention to the fact that clothing is still made by hand by human beings. And so many people forget that when you go to H&M or you go to Forever 21 or wherever you buy your product, somebody took the time and and made that with their hands. And so many people don't realize that. And then bringing that back home and showing people kind of really puts it in their face. And I think it really brings value to the product, and in turn makes it last longer. So
Yeah, totally. So where are you right now? I'm seeing Yoga Democracy behind you.
yeah, so this is our what we call our design studio. This is where we started from day one. I can walk in there and show
Yeah,
you.
let's do it.
Quite a mess and it's a little loud, but yeah, I'll take you in. So this is the team,
Wow,
and
so cool.
everybody's
Hey.
busy at work. So I'll give you a quick tour. We have my partner Haley.
Hi, Haley.
She is the one that comes up with the patterns and the designs. We have Jerry, our production manager. He's the one that prints everything on paper. So we actually have a zero water based dyeing process. So there's no water waste in our dyeing. Everything gets printed on paper and then gets dry heat sublimated. And then this is our fulfillment. So kind of where we mix match orders to product. Like I said, we're growing fast, so this office is a mess, so don't judge us. Is Kaylor, our lead sous. She starts all the products out. They're all caught off guard right now.
Perfect. This is
and
the
then
best kind of tour.
And then it kind of goes down the line, and until it's done.
Awesome.
It's bagged and tagged and shipped out. Actually, I'll take you in the back. I forgot. So again, we do all of our patterns on oak tag. So it's kind of where everything starts. There's 100 different pattern tags back there. And then back here is where we do our dry heat station. And it's not running right now, but essentially put the roll there, and then you put a white piece of fabric on top of the paper, and it comes out the other side of the heater printed.
Wow, you guys figured all this out.
You bundle it up like this, and then it gets taken inside. So it goes basically from a few pieces of white like this.
Yeah.
This is a short, or a piece of a short, a left and a red, to a printed piece. So yeah.
Wow, that's so cool.
That's the quick version.
Gotcha.
Part of the reason we opened up our New York location is because we're, as you can tell, running out of space here. So that location is brand new and a lot cleaner. But there's sanctity in the mess sometimes.
Yeah. So I just have a question for you, because the amount of figuring things out and all that you guys had to do to just do that is kind of crazy. And you mentioned earlier, wanting a win-win for your company. I think a lot of companies see win-win and they feel like, oh, we'll let someone overseas do it. That's our win-win. So my question to you is, what, for the manufacturing in the US piece, which now is really huge for you guys, what initially led to that decision?
Well, it was funny. It was a bit by chance. I think I mentioned to you we were lined up to have everything manufactured in New York by a company for us. And my partner that you just met, me and her showed up, and essentially with all the fabric in our hands, ready to go, all excited. I'm so sorry, they're doing construction on the road outside. And we're all ready to go, and the guy had lied to us, basically tried to pull one over our heads, saying that they had these certain machines that they didn't, and we didn't want to sacrifice quality, because the one thing we knew is that if we were going to be a higher price point, which we had to be, or in line with the market standard price point, then we needed to be better quality. And that was a big meaning for us, not only because we wanted our people to buy our stuff, but we wanted our clothing to last longer because we wanted less waste. So he lied to us. And then we started looking overseas. Actually, we started looking at manufacturing facilities in San Diego and LA. And we went and toured one, and we were watching them cut the stack of fabric. It was probably like this tall. And just peeling off piles and piles of wasted fabric.
Okay.
Just so much wasted fabric that was going right in the dump. And I looked at Haley and I was like, there's no way we can contribute this much waste to the world, because it was like, they were probably cutting 500 leggings, and as much as there was fabric for leggings, there was fabric for waste. And I was just like, this is absurd. So we kind of both took it upon ourselves at that moment to do it ourselves, and really figure out what to do with the extra fabric. And we went, I remember when we first started, we were just piling bins, and we would make dog toys and anything we could think of. And I would bring massive bins of freshly cut, freshly stacked fabric to my school at the time, because I was in an entrepreneurial program, a social entrepreneurial program, and getting, my entire department involved in like, okay, we have 1 ton of this, what can we do with it? And just trying to figure out, what are we going to do with all this waste, and how are we going to put it to use? And over time we've come up with solutions for everything, but it was really the moment that we realized how much waste is truly involved in manufacturing clothing, that we were like, this is not something we want to be a part of.
Yeah, you saw underneath, or behind the curtain, so to speak.
Yeah.
And there was a personal conviction, and maybe somebody else would have not looked at that, or concerned themselves with it, but you guys, you had that in you where you didn't you didn't want to be a part of that. Okay. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, and I know this is another like, difficult, it could be like a long question, but
Yeah.
obviously there are challenges, right? When you decide to go the route you did. If you could share maybe some challenges, but also opportunities. And you've spoken a little bit about some opportunities in using, creating different things. But yeah, just some things to share with people that maybe would be helpful.
Yeah, no.
Empathize with.
Yeah, I think that it's different for everyone. I mean, we are in a very saturated industry, which makes it a lot harder for us. Where we sacrifice a really decent size amount of margin for core value, which is sustainability. We're losing a huge margin, whereas our competitors using that margin to market. So while we have $1 per legging to market, they probably have 10. And so we had to get creative. And as a company that was bootstrapped, and as a company that works off of cash flow for growth, we every day have to get creative on how are we going to make this, and how are we going to sell it, and how are we going to tell people about it. So a prime example is, for a long time, we made headbands out of scrap fabric. We would go to events and we would give those headbands out. And that would get people in our booth. That would allow us the chance, that would break the ice and allow us the chance to tell the story. And then we were getting lifelong customers. So figuring out ways that, okay, I don't have $100,000 a month to spend on Facebook Marketplace, but I have 100,000 headbands I could make and give away and tell a very personal story and create a personal attachment. So that's a great example. I mean,
yeah, totally.
It's 12 eggs one way, half a dozen the other, or a dozen the other. If it's not problems in manufacturing, it's going to be problems in marketing. So you kind of just got to pick the way that that your core values lead you to. And ours was sustainability. So there's a lot of things that come up on a daily basis that we have to decide on whether or not, we're going to get involved in. And another example is, fabric. You know, we only use post-consumer recycled fabric. And you know, at the dawn of greenwashing and all of these things that are occurring in the industry, you have literally bottle manufacturers in China that are right next door to fabric manufacturers. So they make the bottle, they carry it over across the street, then they break the bottle down and make it into fabric so that they can say it was made from plastic bottles.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
so
Wow.
because we're very strict on our fabric policy and our post-consumer recycled materials, we limit ourselves to a lot of products we can, you know, we can't go make a cotton jacket if we want to make a cotton jacket. We can't go, you know, there's a lot of things that we kind of rule ourselves out of, that we're okay with. So we have to figure out other ways. And as we grow and as you grow, it, as long as you can adapt and you know, stick to your core values, I think you'll always find a way. You know, if we do eventually decide to bring on a fabric that's not post-consumer recycled material, but an organic material, then we're gonna do the legwork and the brain work to figure out, okay, the carbon footprint or the impact of making the decision is this. How can we offset that by another thing that we do? And that's really kind of how we work, is if not this, then that situation, and how can we always remain balanced? So that's kind of a broad picture answer to your question, but as far as like internally detailed, you know, I think obviously there is a huge management component of hiring people to manufacture in the US. And that was a big learning curve for us. Finding the right people is hard in any industry, but even harder in an industry that is, you know, dying in the United States. So really taking the time to find the right people, and then when you do, bend over backwards to take care of them, is what I've really found has been the best. Everybody in that office would come in here on a Sunday at the drop of the hat for the company, because everybody in that office is on the bus for the ride and not the destination. They're all on it because of what we believe in and what the company stands for.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and on that note too, what do you mentioned like a dying industry, you know, thinking about the world right now, um, it's really interesting what's happening. What is your sense for the climate with manufacturing? Do you see a change there? Do you know, is there a
Yeah.
potential of life again?
I think it's actually going in the right direction. Here's my theory. My theory is we are becoming a very globalized economy. So people in America, and I'm not speaking for everyone, but a lot of people in America care less about what you do for Americans, and they care more about what you do for the world and what you're doing for the people that can't do things for themselves.
Yeah.
And whether that's America or not, you know, it's just that general thought. And I think it's beautiful. And I think that as we grow to a more globalized economy, it's going to force us to grow to a more globalized community. And I'm excited for that, because not only does that give people overseas the same opportunity and chance that we have, and the same pay, and as those things start to level out, it also holds us accountable. So
Yeah.
as people overseas start to get empowered and get this opportunity and this growth that they've never experienced, we're being humbled as well. So at some point, everybody's going to meet in the middle. And when you say, "Oh, it's cheaper to outsource to China," it's not going to be that way for very long. And it already has proven not to be, with the increased cost of shipping, which you
Right.
know I think is good. I mean, you know, for so many ages there has been sacrifice in industry for profit,
Yeah.
and no longer is that capable because the environment and the consumers demanding otherwise, which is beautiful. So I think in the future, everything's going to level out, and you're going to see manufacturing come back to the United States. I think it'll come back to the Americas first, so Canada and Central and South America, and then more strongly into North America. And we're already seeing a huge effect on that. I mean, Central and South America clothing manufacturing has 10x over the past 2 years. Like the growth is insane. So as that occurs, it'll also start to do the same in the United States. And I think everyone's going to be on a level playing field one day, and things will be a lot more accountable, but also a lot more, just a lot more reasonable. I'm trying to get out of the noise for you.
But it makes sense, right? If your target is, US, why not just make it there?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
not? If infrastructure is there, or if you just, in your case, you'll just create create that yourself. I think that's really beautiful, and it just makes, in every way, makes everything sustainable, and puts that person, I like how you phrased it, you get a sense of the human made your clothes or your product, and maybe even somebody in your state or in your city. It's really cool.
Yeah, and it also, I mean, with margins the way they are with some companies that outsource, there's just irresponsible decisions made, so a basic example is I'll go get 100,000 shirts made in China, not me, but people do this, for the same price that I may make 1,000 shirts. So then they don't care if 999,000 of those shirts don't sell, because they already got their profit.
Gotcha.
So as that manufacturing comes back to the States, people are going to make smarter decisions, and there's going to be a lot less waste.
Yeah, definitely. I have one more question for you, because I appreciate your time so much, and it's also so sunny and beautiful over there. I'm really jealous. Over here,
my office is literally in the desert, so sometimes I just walk over here and look at all the desert creatures. It's fun.
That's fantastic. I'm jealous. What advice would you have? Our focus right now is really, really trying to get people to look at local manufacturing, and spotlight that. What advice would you have for makers, entrepreneurs, or people that are interested in sustainability, supporting that, in terms of maybe just based on your experience? And that it can be a tiny little piece of advice, or something,
I think
grander.
Yeah, I think if anybody's looking to get into venture, I always tell people, start small and start with what you have. Like, I spent so many years with ideas in my head that I never pursued, because I needed all this money and all these things, and it had to be this grand event. And when my partner and I started this company, we started with $500, and it was like, and it worked, and it grew little by little every time. And so I think my first word of advice would be, start small, start with what you have, and really outline your core values, and keep them close to you. And then once you get to the point to where you want to find somebody else to manufacture, if that's the route you go, and you don't continue to do it yourself with what you have, that foundation that you've gotten from starting with bare minimum and understanding every facet of your business and every aspect, is going to give you so much more power and so much more knowledge when you walk into a manufacturer, to make sure you're not only getting something at a price that you can actually live off of, but you're not having to sacrifice your values to do that. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we did right, was we took the time to understand everything before we had someone else do it. I mean, I ran Facebook ads for a year before I even thought about asking someone. We may have made and sewn every bit of our products before we ever asked a seamstress or trained somebody to do it. And it allows us to talk knowledgeably, but it also gives us that power to and confidence to know what's right and wrong. And from that point of view, I think that if you're walking into a meeting with a potential manufacturer, the difference between it working and not working is your knowledge, because they are squeezing margins just like you are, and they're looking for profit, and they're going to do that, and if you don't have the knowledge or the power to understand, or the confidence to understand what you're getting into, it won't work. And that's general business across the board. But I think that that's probably the most important thing. Yeah. And even more so, I think that it's just so much smarter to go the US route in that sense, because there's so much less risk. I mean, when you're speaking to anyone overseas, you don't know what they're gonna deliver on, what they can guarantee. The laws are different. There's so much red tape and fine print that they can pull over your eyes that there's just a lot more risk and a lot more people out to get you, I guess. Not to be negative, but with it in the United States, manufacturing in the US, knowing your stuff is important, but you do have a degree of there's a degree of accountability just because it is stateside, and that's so important, and it means so much, especially when you're starting out and every dollar counts.
For sure. And I would say too that, getting your idea or your prototype even translated into something made is there's work there, and someone has to interpret that correctly.
Yeah.
And even in the US, that takes the right partnership. So I can't
100%.
imagine what that could, what all the pitfalls that could happen.
Yeah.
Overseas, and probably
just
the QA involved is probably massive to do that.
It's tremendous, and the amount of time, especially what I've experienced in the fashion world, fashion in today's world is the equivalent to 1 week of fashion in today's world is the equivalent to a decade. In the basically any time before the 90s. So fashion is so fast. The trends are so fast. And if you're having to spend 3 to 6 months to get a proper sample made, to get a proper manufacturer, to get your product in hand and ready to sell, most likely that trend is gone, or your idea has been done. And that's the beauty of doing it, in-house or stateside, is those things can happen a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And another thing that I've realized too is people on stateside, manufacturers stateside, are so much more willing to work with smaller brands, and also brands that have strong core values, strong sustainable core values. You'll never find a company overseas that's willing to save their scrap fabric so you can come pick it up and do what you will with it. But there are so many companies stateside that that are on board with that and understand that if you have those core values, they're there to support it any way they can. So that's a really cool aspect as well.
Encouraging. Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you so much. This is really inspiring. Your company is just fantastic. Next time I'm in the Phoenix area, I'm going to visit. I'm really excited. So appreciate it. This is Travis from Yoga Democracy, and can't wait. Can't wait to keep in touch, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, keep in touch, and definitely reach out if you ever have any questions, and if anybody else watching this wants to reach out, feel free to. I mean, if I can help anyone make less mistakes than me, and the whole goal is that one day everything's so sustainable that it's normal. And if I can
Right?
help
This should
people,
be normal.
yeah, and if I can help people in that venture and in that process, then that's a win for me. So yeah, don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or need help on anything.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds great. You too.